when we got home to the house, the phone was ringing inside the house, and those were the days where there weren't cell phones. And we went in and got the phone, and it was the owner of the nursery asking if I could show up to work the next day on a Monday. And got a chance to go to Devonshire Downs, which back in those days, which is where the CSUN College is now located out in Northridge. These were giant buildings that they would hold different events in. And what my soon-to-be boss, and I had just kind of signed on, had just done is entered in a landscape garden show. And my job was to, that first Monday that I was working, was to help take down his display. And I remember walking into the place, and there were, I don't know, maybe 25 different displays by different landscapers back in those days. And there were so many homes being built in the valley at that time, thousands of them, that landscaping was an enormous business back in those days, and there were many, many people doing it.
So this is the 50s, the early 50s.
This was in the 50s.
The early 50s.
That's correct. So I walk into the building, and the first place that I end up noticing is this wonderful landscape display that had been done with aloe agave flowers. And the flowers from an agave are sometimes 20 feet tall.
Oh, those are the really tall ones that have the
Right,
pods
and you've seen them in various houses that we've been in that I've used them.
Yes.
And so, but that really stuck out in my mind. Ironically, the gentleman that had done this particular landscaping project ends up becoming a friend and a client and a very big influence on my work. And just last week, as a matter of fact, I ended up going out to a potential new job that it turned out that Walt Young had actually done the landscaping on the house 40 years before. So it's
And this kind of thing is happening to you more and more now as you've been doing what you've been doing in this area for so many years, that you have these connections that come up. Like you're saying, you'll go to a new job, or there's the job you're working on now with the sycamores that you put in there, I don't know how many years ago.
Yeah, and actually one of the jobs that I had working at this nursery back when I was 16 was to actually go up to this house that you're talking about that I put the sycamores on, and they had a wholesale nursery there that used to sell the plant material to 3 different retail nurseries in the valley that were very big, Green Thumb and Green Arrow. And they would buy their plants from this Japanese fellow who was the grower there. And my boss also knew him, and I would go up and pick up plants for sales items that he would be having. And it turned out that that piece of property ends up following me through my entire career. And as I'm talking to you right now, I'm going to be starting, and I have been working on it for the last several years again, and I'm getting ready to start a canyon for a small railroad that you sit on that was originally laid out by Walt Disney.
Such a great
for this friend. And this particular piece of property, friends ended up buying it some 30 some years ago, and I got to completely redo the place. The owner that had it while it was the train was going in was friends with Walt Disney. He became a client later on after he had sold the house, that I ended up doing a project on the Reno airport, a set of small office buildings, a little office complex out in Westlake. And I always tell the story about this because it was so rare to happen. He was a developer, and somehow we had gotten the connection. I think we had done some maintenance for him on 3 other buildings that he had. And so we put together a design for him, and I brought in some numbers for him to look at. And he says to me, what if we spent twice that? What could you do? Well, that's unheard of for a developer to have that kind of attitude. And I told him what we could do, and he says, okay, well, let's do it. And it was very wonderful. Got to do 3 different water features, large trees, big boulders. Ultimately, I ended up getting to go to his new home up in Incline, where he had his own ski lift and his own lake that, if you look on a map, that lake shows up next to Lake Tahoe. And I got to design a series of patios adjacent to his indoor pool. And he had an observatory on top of the house there, and his house was actually located in Nevada, and it was the largest observatory in Nevada, and the Nevada College students got to come up there and use his. And this man also goes back, his mother owned the Hope Diamond, and one time PBS was doing a show about the Hope Diamond, and I told my wife Tree, I said, you know what, I need to watch this just to see if they mention his mother. Well, it turns out the whole show was on his mother. And so this particular piece of property we've gotten to do the most incredible things, streams, ponds. We've got 4 different extremely wonderful water features, a fantastic pool with a stream and a spa. And they've just been wonderful, wonderful clients who love the fact that I date back way before they ever had the house.
And it was also a famous director.
Yes, and I'm glad you brought that up. It was originally built for John Huston, the director and actor, and so he had built a series of trout ponds in the back of the property, and we later turned those trout ponds in, and they were just big concrete bowls that they would have the trout in. We connected them, added a stream, bridges, and it's just a wonderful setting. The other thing we're told that they did is they had a pool that slightly went underneath the house, underneath a portion of the house. The pool was 16 feet deep, and they jumped horses off the balcony into the pool.
That's crazy.
So this particular project has been just unbelievable. Been working on it now for over 30 years on a full-time kind of basis.
Well, I've been lucky enough to go to a couple incredible parties
events
there.
And things.
Yes.
Yes. So it's certainly been, if I have to look at all of the various things that I've gotten to do through my whole career, this is the one that stands out the most, because it started when I was 15 and a half years old up to this date. So
you're still working on it. We just
still working on it, and we just went a couple days ago, and there's some more areas to be working on and doing.
And it's still it's the biggest piece of property in the valley, isn't it? Or
well, it's not the biggest piece of property, but I will say that it's the finest looking property in the valley.
Pretty big.
And it's big. It's probably 4 acres, but it's really what has been able to happen there. And certainly when they put the train in that you can ride on, there's a 300-foot tunnel. So, I mean, that doesn't happen every day either.
Well, I'd love to sometime in the future maybe get to go walk around with you
and point out all those things.
Some beautiful aspects of
that's a excellent
property.
idea.
And,
excellent idea.
And it's just one of the many examples. They're all very unique, but you have so many of these amazing stories with these properties, with clients, jobs that you've gotten to do that have just made such a difference in their lives. Phenomenal.
Yeah, I've been extremely blessed. And I mean, as you're mentioning that, there's one name after another after a name that's flashing in my mind that, that story was incredible. And this gentleman that we met, and I'll take a moment just to kind of say this one, just because I'd like to have it on film here.